Hey y'all, today we are going to be doing a foundation and concealer review. The Saie Slip Tint, and I have shade 1, and the Kosas Revealer Concealer, which I have shade 1.5 and 2.5C. Without further ado, let's get right into the review. So through the months of owning the Saie Slip Tint, I have really found that this works well with multiple different ways of priming it and prepping the skin. Today, I'm going to be using the Hourglass Vanish Airbrush Primer. This gives the skin a slightly smooth, velvety effect. Already on my skin, I have my morning skincare routine as well as my sunscreen on. This has had about an hour to set into my skin. That way, everything will blend and set down nicely. The Saie Slip Tint, if I am not mistaken, I purchased this back in April, and it is now late October when I'm recording this video. I've had plenty of time to play with this, and over the summer, going on vacation, traveling, this was the foundation slash skin tint I took with me a lot because it's just so easy to use. The way I like to apply this foundation product is put a pump of it on the back of my hand, and I like to work with a small amount, tapping it over the skin. I've used a damp sponge, a dry sponge, my fingers, and a brush. My favorite application is the brush and my fingers. So one side of my face, I'm going to show you using the brush, so that is my left side. And then on the right side of my face, I am going to use my fingers. I find the fingers gives it a lot more of a naturally perfected look. So there is one side with fingers versus one side with the brush. So I'm gonna continue blending out the left side of my face with my brush. As far as the coverage level on this skin tint, I would say off baseline, it's going to give you a pretty sheer finish, but I feel like you could build it up to a light bordering on a light medium. I don't feel like you could really build this up to a full medium without it looking a little too heavy. The baseline for the finish for this product, it's a little bit more on the luminous side, but it's not overtly luminous, and it's not a luminosity that I feel like really enhances skin texture. If anything, I feel like the radiance this has almost creates smoother finish with a bit of radiance. Think about that for a moment. It's a very easy product, and here in Canada, it is not marketed as have sunscreen in it, but in the US version, it does. And if I'm not mistaken, it is a zinc and titanium oxide blend. I'm not certain, but I will have it on the screen. Here's one side applied with the brush. Here's the other side with my fingers. I have got my little magnifying mirror, so I just want to look up close and see what we can see a little bit differently. Looking up close, there isn't much of a difference. Looking on this side, things do look a little bit more smooth, and this side, especially right here towards the nasolabial fold, I do see things settling into pores a tiny bit more, but unless you're very, very close or looking at your skin in a magnifying mirror, I don't feel like anyone is going to notice that. And normally with products like this, it will kind of self-level in a matter of time. So I'm going to take a little bit more, about a half a pump, and I'm going to dot it kind of on the high planes of my cheeks. This tends to be the area where I have more prevalent redness and hyperpigmentation that comes through. Similarly, on the kind of corners of my forehead, my chin often looks a little red, and right on the bridge of my nose. And for this part, I want to use my brush again, but I am going to stipple and press the product in. When you stipple products versus swiping, it allows you to build up coverage a little bit more, which can help get a little bit more mileage and opacity out of your product. Because when you're swiping, inevitably you are going to be removing a little bit of product, stippling into the areas where I want more coverage, very sheer coverage, but it just helps perfect the skin and look really nice. So come in even closer, let you look up close. Like how easy and effortless it is to wear. Looking at my skin up close, best way I could describe this product is In a way, it's almost balmy. It's very reminiscent of the kind of glow that my skin takes when I apply something like my La Roche-Posay Cicaplast Baume, thicker, rich barrier cream ointment product like that. The skin does take on this very blush and cocooned look, and this has a very similar effect. It has luminosity, but skin texture isn't enhanced. And if you pair it with a more glowy base, like a more luminous sunscreen, a more luminous primer, then it's going to have a little bit more luminosity. I opted to pair it with the Hourglass Vanish primer because this does leave more of a satiny finish on the skin, which when mixed primer will create a less luminous appearance, which is what I like because my skin has enlarged pores. I can be a little bit more on the oily side, especially when it's warmer, but now that we're into the fall, heading into winter, my skin is a little bit more on the normal balance side, and I'm a little bit more prone to getting dehydrated. This just leaves my skin looking and feeling very nourished and very taken care of. For the concealer, I have the Kosas Revealer Concealer, and the full name of this product is quite long. I believe it's the Kosas Revealer Concealer Brightening Eye Cream or Brightening Daytime Eye Cream. It's a very long name. The shades I have are 1.5C and 2.5C. 2.5C is the shade I've had in my collection for the longest, and it's about a shade to a shade and a half too dark for my skin. And then most recently in the Sephora sale, I picked up the shade 1.5C, which is a better skin tone match for me. Now, one thing I would like to note about these concealers, they are both in the C category. C means cool, which typically we would think about as having more of a pinky undertone. And compared to the other shades in the range, these are a little bit more on the pinky side, but they are not a true cool tone. They do have a little bit of a yellowy warmth to them. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use both shades today. I'm going to start with shade 2.5C, and in my under eye area, I have this little fatty pad that wants to project a little bit more. So I'm going to apply a little bit right there, and I'm going to take a little bit right here on the part of my tear trough that rounds out. With the tear trough and the fat pad, we have highs, we have a low, and then we have a high. If I use something a little bit darker on the areas that are higher and something that's a little bit lighter and brighter on the lower or more recessed areas, then we'll create a more smooth, uniform look, which can add a little bit of a plumpness or youthfulness back to the face. And then with this foundation not having as much coverage, some right on the nasal labial fold, right here where it kind of pops up, and apply a little bit right there, because this tends to be an area where redness wants to pop through. To blend, I'm going to use my BK Beauty A506 brush, fingertip shape brush, but it has a nice little beveled point, so you can really get into the areas that you want. And with this concealer having that kind of creamy emollients, it means it can set down for a little bit without creasing or without setting too quickly, so you can still have some playtime with it. So I like to start blending where I want less coverage, because as a concealer dries and some of that emollient starts to dissipate, the coverage, you'll get a little bit more coverage, a little bit more mileage out of the product. I am not as concerned about right here at the smile lines or navel labial fold where I've already got a little bit of foundation. This is just to add a little extra coverage to the foundation. For my under eyes, I do want a little bit more coverage. That is an area where I have some discoloration and my under eyes are a little bit more on the blue purpley side. So I'm going to roughly tap that out. I'm not going to worry about doing a perfect blend because I am going to layer another shade on top. And for this under eye area, if you don't want the product to migrate too far, I like to flip it upside down so that small point is angled down towards the tear trough area and blend. So that way we'll still have like a little absence of coverage right in the middle. Now I'm going to go back to shade 1.5C, which is the lighter of the two, closer to my natural skin tone. And with this shade, I'm going to take some right here on the inner corner of my eye, meeting the bridge of my nose, and run it right there in the tear trough. And I'll even extend out towards the hairline, as that will help to lift my eye area a little bit. And then right down here at the nasal labials, I'll run a little bit right on the recess, and similar on the chin. I'll add a little bit of coverage right here just to kind of flatten that area so it's more in line with the projection of my chin. And similarly, I can take a little bit right here between the brows and the glabellar area as this part recedes, and this will just give it a smoother look. Now, you do not need to use two different shades of concealer. You do not need to apply this much concealer, but for demonstration purposes, it's nice to kind of show how they work. So I'm gonna go back to my BK Beauty brush and I'm gonna start on the under eye area, patting in. And I'm starting with my under eye area because I've already got some concealer there that will help to add coverage. This is more to brighten, but I don't want as much brightening as I do on this inner corner because on that part of my eye, I'm quite hollow. So I want to let that kind of sit and marinate so I can get the most coverage and the most brightness out of that area before I give it its final blend. Once I have it roughly blended, I like to take my brush back in and just gently press over. Similar, I'm gonna go down to the smile line area, kind of pat this right under the flare of the nose and brush up onto the nasal labial fold where we applied that darker concealer. That way it's just gonna look a little bit more plump. When I first heard about this concealer, it was going to be something that was an easy skip for me because when I saw that it was an eye cream and concealer, I assumed it was going to be something that was more geared towards a person with more dry, dehydrated skin. And my skin can become dehydrated at times, but normally my skin is pretty balanced and I don't struggle with a lot of dehydration. So I wasn't going to purchase this concealer as I thought it was something I wouldn't enjoy. I'm gonna flip back over to my BK Beauty Contoured Foundation, which is the 101 brush. I'm gonna blend right here and I'm just gonna pat over. This will still have some of my foundation in it, so it will just help to mesh everything together. And I still have not blended the inner corner. It is just taking its time and sinking in. Now we're gonna go back to the concealer brush and I am going to start gently pressing and pulling in towards the bridge of my nose. If a little bit gets on the eyelid, it's okay. I'm gonna blend it out. And when I get right here, sometimes if you're looking in the mirror, you might need to twist and turn the body. So since my mirror is behind my camera, I'm gonna twist, look over, and extend towards the bridge of my nose. By adding lightness here, it's going to counteract the shadowing that we get. So it's gonna make this area right here look a little bit flatter, which will diminish the appearance of the hollowing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with hollowing under the eyes. It's part of the natural aging process. If you want to leave it, leave it. For me and my aesthetic and what I like in makeup, I just like to smooth everything out just to have everything look a little bit more plump. I like to go back in with a damp beauty sponge. I like to dampen my beauty sponge quite a while before I sit down to do the makeup. So if I'm doing my makeup in the morning, I will make sure I clean and wring out my beauty sponge at night when I'm brushing my teeth before I go to bed. And then it will be just damp enough in the morning to give me the kind of slip I want. I mentioned earlier that this foundation skin tint product does apply well with a sponge that is either damp or dry. It's a nice technique and I will use the sponge application technique on occasion, but for me, I just really like the tactile experience of applying with my fingers or a brush and then using a sponge to really press the texture of the foundation into the texture of my skin to create the most realistic and smooth canvas possible. Now, when I'm doing my makeup or when I was still working as a freelance artist doing makeup on a client, skin normally took me the longest and it still takes me longest in my everyday routine because I like to really work on enhancing and embellishing the skin, because if I can get the skin looking just right when I go to apply any type of eye makeup, cheek makeup, lip makeup, it will look a little bit better and just more cohesive. When you're blending your under eye concealer and you're either using your fingers, a sponge, or a brush, if we look under the eyes, most everyone will have a natural kind of texture or groove, which our under eye area tends to crease, wrinkle, or crinkle. For me, right down here, my texture runs kind of horizontally down, but right here, it's more vertically starting from about on the outside edge of my iris, extending to the lower. When I'm blending, I like to use the pointed end of my sponge and start by blending product in the direction of the creases, as that will help everything kind of settle in the way it's going to move with the natural kind of anatomy and topography of our skin. By blending something like that, it's just going to help diminish the possibility of something creasing later in the day. Similar with the smile line area, for most of us, they just kind of go down in an angle. So I like to press right in. If you need to, you can kind of pull them off to the side and extend the nose crease. And then on the chin, I normally like to roll my lower lip in and just smooth everything out. We did pick up a superficial amount of product, but how I applied everything in a nice thin layer allows something like this to lift up a lot more sparingly on your sponge, and throughout the day you might notice a little less transferring, a little less settling, as there's not a lot of product sitting on top of the skin that can move and migrate into the valleys of the skin. And one last thing I want to mention in this product try-on is a pressed powder I've been really enjoying. This is from the brand LYS, and this is their Triple Fix Translucent Setting Powder, and I have the shade Resilient, which is translucent. And I don't know if I was on Instagram or TikTok, but I saw people raving about these like little wedge-shaped velour puffs on Amazon, and you got a lot of them. So I have been trying these out, and I'm quite happy with them. When I'm using something like this with a powder, I just like to take and press in. If you want to get a little extra product, you can kind of take and press and rub it in. Instead of going straight in with the powder like that, I like to press it in my hand. That way it's going to really help warm up the product, take off any excess, and work product in. Now, before I go in and set my under eyes, I always like to kind of stretch the area and press under. Then after I set my under eye area, I just like to work in this zone of my face. You'll see it just helps take down the shine a bit and just look a little bit smoother. So again, I like to take my powder, take the puff, press it in. You can either bounce it or kind of press and rub it in. Press the product into the palm of the hand to further distribute it in your sponge. Warm it up, blend out your under eye with your finger to make sure there's no creasing. And then press. And again, we're gonna go in the direction of any type of creasing or settling. So that way everything will just blend a little bit more evenly. And then spread it out through the rest of that kind of zone in the face. After I've blended all over the face, I like to take whatever residual is on my face and blend right over my eyelids. I've not applied any type of eyeshadow primer or shadow to the lids, so this little bit of powder that is just left on the sponge is going to create a very smooth base for the lid and our shadows to blend, and anything left over, I just like to one more time work right over the eye area. I finish off this little foundation routine. I like to finish with the setting spray, and then once that dries down, we can go in with our complexion makeup and add some color and embellish our skin. For setting spray, I've been loving it, and I am almost out of, it's just the little e.l.f. makeup mist and set spray. It's an alcohol-free setting spray, so if you're someone who doesn't like alcohol in your products, you might really enjoy this, and there's no scent. Here is how my skin looks with the Saie Slip Tint in shade 1, a mix of the Kosas Revealer Concealer in shade 1.5C and 2.5C, the LYS Triple Fix Setting Powder in Translucent, and the e.l.f. Makeup Mist and Fix Setting Spray. I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup off camera, and I will be right back. And the rest of the makeup is on. All the color products I use will be listed on my blog post on my website. Let's get to the point of concern, or the topic of the video. What are my thoughts on the Saie Slip Tint and the Kosas Revealer Concealer? I feel like you could probably tell from the application, I am a huge fan of both these products. I have since set and applied makeup on top of the Kosas Slip Tint. I love that it adds a little bit of luminosity and radiance to the skin, but it doesn't look heavy. It doesn't emphasize pore texture. It doesn't maximize any looks of fine lines or wrinkles. Overall, it gives luminosity, but it's very smoothing. It's very plumping. It's just very fresh feeling. And I feel like same goes for the Kosas Revealer Concealer shades 1.5C and 2.5C. The Saie Slip Tint is in shade 1. And 2.5 is too dark for me, but when I applied it kind of on the higher points of my tear trough, so the junction between the eye and the cheek and the puffiness, the little puffy bit of my lower eye area, and then applied 1.5C right in the lowest valley of the tear trough. It creates a very beautiful dimensional look, which I feel like makes the under eye area look smoother and brighter. Going forward, when I run out of 2.5C, I would probably just purchase 1.5C, and that is good for me. I'm very, very happy. I feel like both these products would work for most people. I feel like on its own, most people from dry, normal combination would work really well with this. I feel like if you are extremely dry, extremely dehydrated, or the opposite side of the spectrum where you are very, very oily and in a matter of moments after putting on your makeup, you feel like you're having a greasy, shiny breakthrough, this might not be the best. However, over the summer when I went to the beach with my family, I wore this. It was very warm. It was very humid. I did get shiny. I wore a more kind of mattifying sunscreen, and I wore this and I didn't feel like it looked too greasy, too shiny. I had to apply a little bit of powder throughout the day to touch up with, but overall this worked really, really well. But I am not the most oily person. I do sweat more, but I don't really have oily, greasy breakthroughs, and I still enjoyed this. Similar with the Kosas Revealer Concealer, I feel like most people this will work really, really well for. If you're someone who is especially dry under the eyes, you might still need to prep this with a nice hydrating under eye primer or a really kind of rich moisturizing cream. And if you're someone who is very greasy, very oily under the eyes, this might feel a little too slick, a little too heavy. But overall, for the mass majority of people, I feel like it's a really, really nice concealer. Some of the other products we touched on today, which were Hourglass Vanish Airbrush Primer. I really love this. This was something I picked up during the Sephora sale, and I feel like it just gives the skin a very lovely, velvety, airbrushed finish, and I really, really like it. And similar for the LYS Triple Fix Pressed Powder, and I have the shade Resilient, which is translucent. It's a really nice smoothing product, and when you apply it with like the little wedge sponges that I got off Amazon, it's a little soft focus mattifying face tune in a compact combination that I really enjoy. And I also used my little e.l.f. makeup misting set, and I'm gonna apply it a little bit more because it's just that good. I enjoy how everything turned out. Like I mentioned, all the products on my face will be listed on my website, and if you want to see how I got this look, then this is the look I did for my slight summer seasonal color analysis video. Only thing different about that video is I swapped out my lip color, and I have on this Chanel lip gloss, which is the Rouge Cocoa Gloss in number 804, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is Rose Pulp. I could be mistaken, but number 804 for sure. If you've tried out any of these products, but especially the Saie Slip Tint or the Kosas Revealer Concealer, I would love to know your thoughts, experiences, wear time in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already subscribed, I would love if you subscribe to my channel and give the video a thumbs up. Those were kind of backwards, blah, blah. But I would love to have you part of the little beauty community that we've got growing here on YouTube. When I am recording this video, we are in the 900s. That means we have fewer than 100 subscribers left. We hit that first big YouTuber goal of 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to have you here as part of the community. Until the next video, take care of yourself wherever you are in the world, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, y'all.